Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I am your host, Corey C., and I'm here with a very special guest today, and his name is Gerardo, the founder of Look Into and the creator of LookIntoHex. How are you today, Gerardo? How's everything?
Doing well, man. Just made myself some coffee. Thanks for having me on. The coaster just fell. Awesome. But yeah, I'm ready to rock out this podcast. I'll be real with you. First it was Hexologist making content back in the day. It was just one guy. And so that's easy to keep up with. And then it's like two guys, Hodl Dog comes into the scene, and then three guys. And then when I started making content, April of last year was the pivot point where I stopped watching all of the Hex, all of the Pulse content. Like, you just can't anymore. You used to be able to, but now I just can't. So yeah, I'm very behind on all the creators, but it's interesting being able to do interviews, for example, like right now, and talking with all you guys and getting to know you in a more personal way, as opposed to just consuming all your guys' content. We're actually meeting. So I'm getting a real one-on-one versus kind of an abstracted version of you that it's like a sum of all of the experiences through the videos I watched, for example.
No, I absolutely agree. I think because I've only been in the Hex and PulseChain community for that's middle of February. I want to say about 4.5, 5 months now. And in that time period, I've met so many people. I've actually, the first time in cryptocurrency, I've actually met someone from the Hex community in real life. I actually went out to dinner with them and spoke about Hex and PulseChain. I don't know if you know who Gunther is, but we went out.
Very cool.
Yeah, I went out in October, and the content, it's just everywhere now. I can't say the same experience that you had with only a few content creators, but everywhere I go, whether it be Twitter or YouTube, there's somebody creating content or creating something to complement Hex or PulseChain, which is very exciting to say the least.
Very much so. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I'm really excited to talk about your project as well today, which I'm very excited for, which is very interesting.
Definitely.
So to begin, because I do a lot of Hex and PulseChain interviews, like PulseChain oriented projects or discussions on PulseChain and Hex, but I also do other podcasts or other projects that may not be familiar with PulseChain or Hex. So for my audience who may not be familiar with Hex and PulseChain, would you be able to highlight who you are in the Hex and PulseChain community?
Right, totally. I didn't know your audience didn't know necessarily. Okay. So like I said, I'm the creator of LookIntoHex.com, which is the home of, in my opinion, the best quantitative models for Hex in the world. And we had a V2 upgrade on the site. I call it V2, but it's basically the backend is beautiful now. It's automated. I don't even have to touch it. It just works now.
That's
great. And it's more accurate too. So I created this website to highlight just some of the metrics I found were extremely important that really stood out to me in Hex. So I have a background in a little bit of programming, STEM classes here and there, flopped around in college.
Awesome.
And so I learned how to make certain charts pretty easily. Spreadsheet manipulations pretty easy. Spreadsheets are pretty easy, honestly. But then you get into combining that with all the math and whatnot, and then just the eye for numbers and whatnot. And so Hex just stood out to me from a logical perspective, like the gains it's made. So I was like, comparing it to early Ethereum gains, early Bitcoin gains. And those were my second video. I just checked today. My second video ever on this channel was Hex versus ETH ROI from launch.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a very interesting comparison.
Right. And then after that, naturally, I did Hex versus BTC ROI from launch. And then you look at all my past videos, and it's just certain things that are cool to look at that I feel like a lot of people were trying to make these charts on Twitter, especially the Hex versus ETH versus BTC one. I remember there was one floating around, but it just wasn't to scale. And that bothered me fundamentally from just a math background. I wanted to see it to scale, actually normalized. What that means is everything starts from the same point, so it's fair. And normalization just means dividing out day one price so that you're dealing in X's. So everything is talking the same language, right? Because if you try to plot Hex and the pennies down here, and then Ethereum at thousands of dollars, and then Bitcoin at $20,000, $40,000 or whatever, the charts are just going to be all messed up. So I was like, I want to see that made. I asked a few people, no one really made it. I was like, okay, if you want something done, do it yourself. Figured it out, got the data. Getting the Bitcoin data was tricky, actually. Like
Really?
anything before 2011.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, I couldn't find anything. So that's basically where that model starts.
Mhm.
I guess could be an open challenge. Like if anyone can find spreadsheet data for Bitcoin before 2011, that would be nuts. But I think that's when it first started trading on exchanges.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Before that, it might have just been like local Bitcoins.
Right.
If you know what that was, people
I've
just,
heard of it before.
yeah, in person, just Bitcoin for this, Bitcoin for that, like zero liquidity. So like I saw all these things with Hex, it's like outperforming ETH and BTC ROI from launch, which you can see on LookIntoHex.com. It's like the 5th tab. It's one of my favorite charts. It's a great onboarding tool as well. So it outperformed in those metrics. What other metrics? I thought the staking was really innovative too.
Yeah.
The staking
Absolutely.
feature, it broke new ground, that share system. And you see other projects actually copying that now, which is kind of funny. You see a lot of new projects just taking little things from Hex and adding it to theirs. It's really interesting to see. But yeah, that's kind of my start in the Hex community. Last year, just started making videos on these charts that I wanted to see because no one else was making them.
No, that's awesome and very interesting because I see one thing I've noticed about Hex and PulseChain is that it's more along the lines of looking at the projects from a philosophical view, from a view of progress, from a view of updates. But there, for what I've seen, and maybe this is just anecdotal, I didn't see many videos on charts and comparing Hex to other cryptocurrency ROIs. So that's very, very interesting, especially from a quantitative analysis perspective. I don't see that very often. And as a person who's not in a math background, I went to school for history, not math. I'm horrible in math. It's awesome to be able to, because I checked out LookIntoHex, and it really simplifies it for a lot, especially for new users. And it's very interesting to see, all of the comparison charts. So that's a really awesome creation that you made. It's a great onboarding tool. It really is.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and it is an interesting metric to look at. It's an interesting frame to put it in.
Mhm.
And you made me start thinking like, where did I actually like get that idea from? It might have been the way Richard Hart framed the design intention of Hex. He said design to 10,000x in less than 2.5 years. So if you think about those numbers, he's saying ROI from launch, right? 10,000x is the ROI, 2.5 years from when? From launch. So it just hit me now that like that was the framing that kind of planted the seed to make charts like that. Huh.
No, that's
cool.
You learn something new every day.
designed to do a certain ROI from launch. There you go. And it did it.
Yeah, it did. So let me ask you this then, since you've been involved in Hex and PulseChain community for a while, a lot longer than me. What was the defining moment that sold you on Hex and PulseChain?
I was talking to My Life is Awesome yesterday about this, and basically the realness of Richard. And we kind of touched on the fact that you go into certain, watching certain people on YouTube, maybe with a bit of a guard up. You have your guard up, and then you realize, well, you build that up because you realize they have these angles on you for the most part sometimes, and he didn't, right? And so you have your guard up, and we were laughing at this because it was like after video number 3, 5, 10, 15, you're just like, can I put my guard down? Like this dude doesn't have like this angle on me. He's just speaking truth, knowledge that I haven't heard before, against the grain of what other people are saying. Everyone else is just saying, all this is awesome. This is going to the moon, blah, blah, blah. And he's saying, no, these are the actual problems, like coming at you from a very logical, just grounded perspective, very based, so to speak. And that's real is attractive to the mind who seeks truth, right?
Yes, it is. It's a very good point.
And so that was the kind of turning point. And just the raw honesty of saying, yo, this is designed to 10,000x in less than 2.5 years. Like no one in crypto had ever approached me through the internet from that perspective and told me that, and he didn't even promise it, right? Like just saying it's designed to do this. Some things are designed to do things and they don't actually do them. So kind of always hedging his statements. Very, very smart.
Absolutely.
But what was the question? I get on these tangents.
It's okay. Basically, what was the defining moment on why you got involved in HEX and PulseChain? It's okay.
So definitely that, because he highlights it's that key sales tool, that key sales tactic, which is like you continue on the conversation going on in the prospect's head. Like you just start there, and so they're like, oh, you understand me, like you just read my mind and are continuing on solving the problem that I didn't say but was on my mind, which is cryptocurrencies. Their main use case is the mad gains, like just the appreciation potential. And like, all right, no other crypto told me this, but that's actually what I'm here for, like conversation going on in your brain.
Right.
And so just a lot of just very skilled approach to social media, right? He had very, very skilled approach.
I agree, and I'm glad you were brutally honest about the cryptocurrency main focus is gains, because I feel like it's true, because a lot of people will sit behind the notion of utility, which it's always nice to see utility. I mean, I think that leads to longevity. I think that leads to maturation of a market, and I think that defines an asset when there's actually utility in the market. But realistically speaking, there's always that subtle subconscious, maybe not even subconscious, but conscious thought that I'm here to make money. And anybody who says otherwise is, for lack of a better word, a BS artist, in my personal opinion.
You can have both.
Yeah,
you can have, and like utility doesn't necessarily, not really at all, say like, oh, this thing is going to go up or down, but because that's really a matter of narratives. Like you could argue there's like a weak or semi-weak, semi-strong correlation or something like that, where it's utility creates the meme, creates like the narrative, creates the actual buy pressure. It's not like a direct utility creates pump. So it can help with narratives. And if you really want to argue that utility is useful, well, innovation in systems, I guess the share system itself, that's what I'm really trying to get at. The share system itself is very innovative, in my opinion, from a cryptocurrency perspective, from just a math perspective, how you have this, and to simulate compounding interest for a system of users, you have, instead of having to write more and more and more and more coins to them over time, which would be like hell on the actual like load of the system, you just have one number, the share rate, that changes over time. That's infinitely better. So that in and of itself, like, is that not utility? Like innovating on math and crypto and systems, like, I think that's pretty useful.
Very.
So if you really want to go down the utility route, like Hex has a ton of useful things, like delayed gratification. That's useful for the world. That's good. Yeah, Maddie says it all the time. It's a healthier money, so to speak. Versus saving dollars and getting diluted. Like, how is that healthy? Like, saving should be rewarded. Gratification should be rewarded, not punished. So that's an unhealthy money.
I agree. And 40 years ago, it's insane how fast things have changed. 40 years ago, you put your money into a savings account and it accrued 3 to 5% interest, sometimes even more. Now you get a maintenance fee. So
there you go, man. Like,
so yeah, I
haven't even touched those, honestly, to know the actual metrics these days.
I don't blame you, but it's the percentage is an insult. It really is. So you brought up LookIntoHex very intricately, but I just wanted to ask, you were the creator of it, and the main reason for creating LookIntoHex was because no one ever created a analytical format for comparing charts with HEX to other very well-known cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, for example.
I did videos on like Hex versus ADA ROI from launch too.
Oh, wow.
Hex versus Doge ROI from launch, which I think what would be amazing is on the, like, if there's a new update to the site, would be having like one chart that you could do Hex versus, and then you just like check mark, I don't know, Doge, and you can see like Hex versus Doge, and you can add BTC and it's Hex versus Doge versus BTC, and you can like play around with all these like combinations. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be very amazing. Comparisons,
I want that.
That would be amazing. Maybe you gotta, maybe, you know, you said before, you know, if no one else is gonna do it through yourself, I'm waiting to see that then.
Yeah, man, gotta hit up my dev. He's gonna hate me. We already have like a lot of stuff planned.
But that's awesome, man. I appreciate what you're doing for HEX a lot. I really do. And you know,
it did a lot for me. So it's a matter of reciprocity at this point, like giving back as much as I can.
That's awesome. That's very noble. That's very noble. Most people would just take their money and run. So, you know, good for you for staying in the seriously.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm here. I'm knocking out videos almost daily.
Yeah.
At least weekly.
No, you deserve it, man. You got 12,000 subscribers. You know, good for you, man. You deserve it. You do a lot of content. You know, it's well deserved.
Thanks, man. Hopefully crypto becomes bigger in the real world, and all of us have like hundreds of thousands, if not millions.
Yeah, I hope so.
Looks like the trajectory. So
I'm definitely trying, and I appreciate you coming on to talk too. It's nice. So I'm really excited to speak about another project of yours that you're building, which is very, very interesting when I found out about it. Actually, I'm sure you've heard of them, the PulseChains. The NFT creators are the ones who actually introduced me to you.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's why I reached out to you. So I wanted to ask you, what is Mintra and how did the idea form?
Yeah, this is a story.
Please tell me.
Inspired, as always, by the man, Richard Hart, right? He's like, yo, HEXicans, go build stuff. Like, this is a decentralized community. This is what crypto is about. Like, we are, and then Steph said it best, I think. He said, Hex is like a massive DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization that just emergently branched off into great marketers, into great, human resource guys like Maddie, who's great with people. And then you have like, obviously the sales guys like Kareem, and then you have the chart guys and the theory guys, and the like, it just kind of self-organized into this emergent thing. And you want to carry on the spirit of that. And like I was saying, inspired by Richard Hart saying, go build stuff. It's like, yo, he even mentioned building his own OpenSea clone competitor. So he's like, this is the low hanging fruit, something like that, something like fiat on ramps, right? To get capital and denominated in euros or dollars or whatever into the crypto space legally, doing it right. And those companies, they charge a small fee. So you can also have the incentive to get rich while onboarding a ton of people into something like HEX, because HEX isn't listed on the big exchanges, but the big exchanges don't always have to be the biggest exchanges. Like, you see the landscape change all the time, right? These kingdoms rise and fall very, very quickly these days.
Yes, they do.
Digital empires or whatever. But to the point of Rogers, I don't know if you know Rogers, but he's on the team, and it was actually his idea, right? He was the one launching PLS NFT.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So they just rebranded. It was PLS NFT. So they were already starting with the infrastructure. And again, I was inspired by Richard. I looked into this on my own, actually, like looking into devs and actually, like, when you want to do a project, you have to get up to speed on what even you are looking for.
Of course.
That's the tricky part. And so it's like, okay, got to find out what I'm looking for. I'm realizing it's going to be a ton of overhead. Like, we're talking 4 or 5 figures a month, just overhead and server maintenance and whatnot. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, this is starting to be quite the mountain, right, for one person. So I'm like, as always, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with the team. So I'm like, all right, let's reach out to some people who maybe are already building this, see how they're building it, compare costs. So I don't get, what's the word? Like overcharged by a dev
Right.
or something,
Mhm.
like seeing what the actual costs are. Reached out to them, had a chat, realized they were building what I wanted to build. And to some degree, I was building what they wanted to build, which is like community and outreach and whatnot. And it's like I had great ideas for not only their rebranding. Yeah, so basically I had what they need in terms of branding, really, because PLS NFT didn't really stand out,
Mhm.
I guess,
Right.
to the point where like it's funny because to the point where they were already doing this. They're already, but it's just a matter of marketing and branding that brings the actual awareness to something. And there were actually a lot of changes. I'm not gonna lie. There were a lot of changes that we made to like their tokenomics and just the kind of just a lot, man. It was like a full rehaul, except like the infrastructure, the core thing is like pretty much the same.
No, that's amazing that you're doing literally an entire overhaul. And what really interests me is actually my next question that I know that you just announced, I believe, fairly recently. Are you really forking OpenSea? And what problems do you see within the OpenSea marketplace for NFT buyers, sellers, and creators?
Okay, first of all, I realized I didn't even mention what Mintra was, did I?
Oh, you did. You brought up briefly.
Did I say that it was an NFT marketplace?
No, you didn't.
Okay. We need to hit those keywords because that's
Go
actually
ahead.
what it is, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the reason I said I'm forking OpenSea is because that's easy, digestible, understandable, right? For the most part, for the past year or two, it's been the most popular, most volume
Right.
NFT marketplace in the world. Recently surpassed by LooksRare,
Oh, I didn't
right?
know.
Yeah, just on daily volume because they threw actual better game theory on it. There you go. And that is extremely new. But back to my point, the reason I said we're forking OpenSea is because it's easy, digestible, understandable, but truly it's not a fork because those are some guys' servers, right? An actual fork is like, all right, you have a blockchain, you have a hard fork. Like I don't know the technicalities of a blockchain hard fork. I don't get into that right now.
Yeah, neither do I.
But when you just clone what someone else is doing, it's not necessarily it's not a fork technically. It's just like, oh, they're hosting a bunch of servers, we can host a bunch of servers, right? We're not touching OpenSea stuff. We're not it's more so modeling after LooksRare, the one I just mentioned, because they threw better tokenomics on their coin. Like OpenSea just launched SOS, just give it away for free, and like I think dump like forever. Same with the Looks token. Like they just when you just give free coins to people,
they'll dump it.
Usually they just dump them. Like, ooh, airdrop a few grand, awesome.
Yeah,
like
it's true.
I mean, that's what I did, right? I'm not bullish on holding looks for more than the 10 minutes after I noticed I got it. Like,
totally understand that.
That's just me. Like, I have my eyes focused obviously on Hex, PulseX. Like, I just don't have the RAM, the brain capacity to like care about all this stuff. You choose what you care about, right?
Absolutely.
So it's basically a model of LooksRare because they give ETH revenue of the platform fees back to the users.
Oh wow.
And so we thought like, oh, that'd be really cool. Like, and in the spirit of Richard Hart projects where PulseX charges a 0.29% fee. PulseX is the new it's basically the Uniswap of PulseChain, the Ethereum fork. So they charge a 0.29% fee versus Uniswap, which charges a 0.3% fee. So you just do a little better, right? You just give a slightly better deal, slightly better rate, just to say you're better. And so OpenSea charges 2.5% on their fees. Mintra will only charge 2.25% on transactions. And of that, right, the wording here is weird, right? So 2.25% fee on the entire transaction.
Okay.
So 1% of the entire transaction could go to mint stakers. So there will be a mint token. And if they stake that token, right? Reduce liquid coins, potentially reduce sell pressure on the market, hold up the price. We all know staking is great.
Yep.
But it wouldn't be an actual hard lock staking. It's not a time lock like Hex. It's just your typical like pull your rewards whenever yield farming type interface, most likely. And yeah, you just pull your rewards whenever you want, which will be denominated in some of that fee revenue of the platform. So you have the incentive, I guess, to get people to use the platform, which is also good for Pulse, right? Because we know OpenSea is like the biggest gas guzzler on Ethereum. So potentially something like Mintra could be huge gas guzzler on Pulse and just burn that Pulse, which mint stakers could be getting, making their bags more valuable. So it's like this really cool feedback loop, I think, to load up the network.
I absolutely agree. And not to mention the fact that, at least, the great thing about PulseChain is that you won't be charged. You won't have to take out a mortgage to make a transaction fee.
There
you go. And that's really, really awesome that you're creating something like that. I think it's crucial to create something that creates more utility in the PulseChain ecosystem, especially that it's going to be even though PulseChain is basically not basically, but PulseChain is a fork of Ethereum. It needs projects that will utilize the platform. And if you're creating something that we see, for example, like OpenSea, that is the biggest gas guzzler of Ethereum, then Myntra being on PulseChain will be an amazing additive to the platform as a whole. Now, there's the phenomenon that Richard Hart, I think I would say, created, the notion of a sacrifice. So yes. Is there a sacrifice from Myntra? How long will it last? Is there a bonding curve? And what cryptocurrencies are accepted?
It's a lot of questions right there.
Yes,
Let's knock those out one by one.
Take your time, man.
So yes, there will be a Myntra sacrifice phase. Reason being, you have to choose how to distribute the supply.
Of course.
And you want it to be a deflationary token. And so you just airdrop that initial supply to people who actually have skin in the game, so to speak. Because if you get free coins, you value them less, right? It didn't cost you anything. It's similar to like buying a course, a fitness course. It's like, oh, I have $200 skin in the game. Like I'm more likely to follow the routine, for example.
It's a good point.
Or whatnot. Like you have skin in the game, so you care. Even though it's a sunk cost, like psychology is weird.
It is.
It just works. But so yeah, you have to choose who to give the supply to. So it will be to the sacrificers. It begins February 16th, I believe, for UTC.
Okay.
Right. So like 4 hours after the day ticks over.
Okay.
And the list of acceptable coins can be found on mintra.info. Right now, it's basically any stablecoin on Ethereum.
Okay.
I think they're accepting, wow, language, wrapped Bitcoin, other ERC20s, probably HEX, BSC stables like BUSD.
Cool.
Probably BNB, BEP20. They're talking about accepting more EVM chains just because people are like, oh, do you accept this? So probably, maybe. That's all I'm going to say for now. It'll last 14 days, right? So February 16th for UTC, 14 days, basically until the end of the month.
Okay.
And 100 points, 100 sacrifice points per USD equivalent, right? And you're not buying anything, they're just points.
Right.
And it's actually sacrificing to prove you believe the blockchain should not destroy the environment.
That's awesome. Cool.
Right. Because you attach a narrative to it. You point out that you're not selling anything.
Right.
Right. It's just people proving to a cause. It's very, very, very similar to just like giving away their money.
Of course.
And we think that the branding goes really well, the green, right? Myntra, and actually having an impact in the world. And actually haven't mentioned this at all, but obviously you have no expectations of profit from the work of others, but it'd be really cool to see some of the sacrifice funds
absolutely
go to some sort of charity, whether that's what the HEXicans love, like Sens, or whether it's a reforestation project, or whether it's like suicide prevention, anything to like just make the world a little better, you know?
That's awesome.
So it would be cool to see that. I have no idea, no one knows what's going to happen to those funds, but it'd be really cool to see something like that happen.
That would be awesome, because I like how you highlight the notion of pollution with blockchains. And one thing I've noticed with Bitcoin maxis is they refuse to acknowledge that proof of pollution, proof of work, is so it's so detrimental to the environment. So that's something I really appreciate you bringing up. And let me ask you this: would you be able to outline the tokenomics of Myntra? I know you brought up staking before to the audience and its utility.
Mm-hmm. Oh, back to the utility meme. Okay. I just wanted to bring up some figures real quick on an NFT Carbon Footprint. You can see this on Mintra.info. Actually,
go ahead, please.
Rogers went all out and he's like, yo, these are the actual figures, which is great to have.
Mm-hmm.
So just a rough estimate on NFTs and energy footprint being, this probably means nothing to anyone, but roughly 35 kilowatt hours, about the same as powering a refrigerator for a month. See, that's kind of a lot.
Okay.
So it also involves NFT transactions, also involve minting, bidding, selling, transferring, blah, blah. Just going into how much energy NFTs on proof of work blockchains use, whereas something like Mintra, which will be on a proof of stake blockchain, aka PulseChain,
right,
eliminates all this. So it's a play on that, right? Because you can get people on Pulse from all these different verticals. Like you can get the cheaper fee guys, the guys who care about faster blocks, the guys who care about deflationary coins, the guys who care about the environment. And like, this is a direct play on that vertical, which I think just helps Pulse too. Like we're getting at, it's really meant to like help Pulse.
No, that's an amazing notion. I agree. And I like it because I'm starting to see a lot of, because there's actually another project I work for called Ergo, and they're part of the Crypto Climate Accord, and there is a growing movement inside of blockchain where there's an inevitable realization that carbon footprints are very important to nullify and lower, especially the proof of work blockchains that create a lot of pollution because of excessive energy consumption. So I think that's a great focus. And I think that with a notion of environment, I think people will be very enticed to join. And like you said, there's multiple different angles on why this is very enticing and inclusive from all different angles. So I really appreciate that. And Gerardo, I really appreciate your time today. So my last question to you is, are there any closing thoughts about Myntra that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yes, the tokenomics that I didn't touch on yet.
Sure,
and then we'll close it up. So remember we said OpenSea charges 2.5%, Myntra will charge 2.25%. We said 1% could go to stakers, right? So there's still 1.25% left. So it'd be really cool to see some of that go into watch what that address does, but it'd be really cool to see it buy and burn on the open market.
That was interesting.
Just touching on potential tokenomics that would be cool to see. Like who doesn't like buy and burn?
I agree.
At least as an idea, just theoretically speaking. Like who doesn't like the idea?
No, it's a great idea. I agree.
So mint stakers could get PLS platform revenue fee. So it's kind of a play on accumulating Pulse, right?
Wow. Okay.
That's what the fee is denominated in, by the way. We should probably mention that.
Okay.
Right. So it's like you're making your NFT transactions. You have a really cheap Pulse network fee because it's a really fast, it's a better network. And we'll see, right? What kind of the fee market starts looking like, because it is different consensus. Right. But you have that, and then you'll have the platform Myntra fee, which will be that percentage value denominated in PLS. And yeah, that's important to make. So any mint staker, it's kind of a play on accumulating Pulse in a way. And there are different ways, because you could delegate your Pulse to get Pulse. You could put Pulse and some other coin, let's say Mint, even like in a PulseX pool, and yield farm Pulse and Mint plus incentive token. So there are different ways to get Pulse, but this will be one of them. Like you stake your Mint and you can get Pulse. So just giving people options, right?
That's great.
Want to do. And I'm assuming these will be variable things, right? I don't think staking your pools will be like a fixed APY forever. I
Right.
don't think pools will have fixed APYs forever. And technically, the revenue share would be based on volume on Mintra. So
Mhm.
that won't be a fixed APY forever either. So it's kind of, you have all these different plays to accumulate PLS if that's what you want to do. And yeah, why not do it while holding a coin that might be bought and burnt on the market?
Absolutely. That
Another
that's
little play. Mhm.
no, that's very interesting. So that sounds very awesome. So I just want to say, Gerardo, I really can't thank you enough for your time today, talking about LookIntoHex, talking about Myntra, talking about the intricacies of Hex and PulseChain and your personal history in this ecosystem. And thank you for all you do for Hex and PulseChain.
Thank you, Corey. You're a great interviewer, and I really enjoyed chatting with you and being on your show. Of
Cheers. Thank you so much, Gerardo. I really appreciate it, man.
course, man.